A reading from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being, in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light which enlightens everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Translations are a response not only to the need to offer something that is in one language in a different language to enable more and more people to get the message. Translations are also a response to how people need to understand things at any given time differently from how things were understood at another time. Meanings and emphases change as something well-known takes on a new life and needs a new voice in a new context. This is what language does. This is what words are for. But words also go out of fashion, or they lose their bite. I give you just a small example. One translation of the first verse of the first chapter of St. John's Gospel runs as follows. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And another translation runs as follows. And the Word was in the presence of God. I suggest that the first translation gives a strong, connected sense of the relationship between Son and Father in God by the single, simple word with. But the second translation doesn't quite do it for me, because for one thing, it takes longer to say less. The phrase, in the presence of, takes me more into the realm of watching someone rather than being on a par with someone else. And this is just not enough. When I consider the theological struggles and battles of the early centuries of the Church, and we today are beneficiaries of these struggles and battles in, for example, the Nicene Creed, which we recite Sunday after Sunday in the Holy Communion service. True God of true God. Much of this may indeed be difficult for us to understand. But I've yet to find someone who is not lifted out of a lesser space into a bigger space by hearing read what is called the Christmas Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so it continues thundering into our Christmas hopes and our New Year dreams. There are other Christmas Gospels, of course, and we need them too. But St. John chapter 1 verses 1 to 14 does something different. It takes us outside our zone of shepherds and mangers into a world where God is God. Throughout the time of the coronavirus, I have repeatedly suggested that more and more we have been on our own with God. Many people do not like it. Many people cannot handle it. And many other people have been able to handle it rather well. Why might this be? I suggest the same answer to the two different scenarios. That it is not because God is not there, it is because God is there, and we are simply not sure what to talk about or how to react. The best answer of all may be that there is no pressure whatsoever on us to talk or to put words on it. We should let God be the Word. And our best response may well be listening, full stop. As we review 2020 and as we take stock, we still have time to look ourselves in the eye and look for God the Word. But as well as the word with, we have the word was. And this introduces us to yet another subject area, creation. Being and time come together in the being of others, because all things came into being through him. While we may not be sure who we still are, in comparison with who we once were, as a result of COVID-19 and all its ongoing ramifications, while we have almost completed a year which has felt like an eternity, this nonetheless is the time of new creation. All things come into being through him. And we need to seize this opportunity for new creation at Christmas 2020. The power that the Word gives is rather like the power of his earthly mother Mary. Power to become a child of God in a special way. This power is to be used not only for nurturing but for justice. As well as bearing a child, Mary will hasten the pulling down of the mighty from their seat and the exaltation of the humble and the meek. The song and the story of Mary already contain within them the 5 marks of mission that characterize the life of the Anglican Communion and the life of our own diocese. Mary's soul tells out the greatness of the Lord. Mary tends her infant son and teaches him and the rest of her young family what mothers can and do teach. Mary's radical acceptance of the visitation of her by the Holy Spirit transforms her and us. And as St. Luke tells us, she goes on to treasure all these things in her heart. The Word and words matter. Words are on our lips and in our hearts this Christmas 2020. We need to tell these words out in celebration and in action, in joy and in believing.